Lecture de l'acte d'accusation, cour supérieure.
Mr. Gondapur,
Monsieur Gondapur,
where is your
où est votre
counsel?
avocat?
I choose to represent myself in this matter, Your Honor.
Your Honor, Mr. Gandapur has ample resources with which to hire a whole team of lawyers experienced in defending clients charged with capital crimes.
Actually, Your Honor, my alleged co-conspirator and I wish to be tried together. We will be co-counselors, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we cannot have one defendant putting another on the stand.
Mr. Gondapur, are you and Mr. Jackson willing to be held responsible for your knowledge of court procedures, your ability to adequately cross-examine and communicate your side of the story efficiently and effectively?
We are, Your Honor.
Then I see no problem with you representing yourself pro se. How do you plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Pleinement coupable.
Not guilty?
Well done, Mr. Jackson. The rest of you will see you at trial.
Oh là là là.
It doesn't take much imagination to see what's going to happen here. They'll each point the finger at each other and create enough reasonable doubt, and both of them will walk.
Tous les deux. Putain, il est pas content, McCoy.
And acting as their own defense will give them total access to each other. Plenty of time to get their story straight.
Yeah, but Gandapur is a shark. He'll figure out how to put this all on Jackson somehow while he walks.
Then get Jackson to roll on him
Merci pour les
first.
11 mois.
Jackson's a sex offender on parole accused of murdering 8 women.
Gif, hein.
What can we offer him other than life in prison?
A chance to tell his side of the story without Gandapur pulling the strings. Shoot for the moon. If that doesn't work, divide and conquer.
J'ai pas encore trouvé de superbe musique pour... Ah mais c'est normal que tu n'aies jamais vu le gif puisqu'il est nouveau.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth without omission?
I do.
Des nouveaux trucs. Alors.
Most of the Mangler's victims were found in shallow graves around Nassau County, but Wendy Crane was found in Harlem, in plain sight. Can you explain?
Patty didn't follow the plan. You see, Wendy had defensive wounds on her hands and on her arms. Something went wrong in the van. Patty panicked and he strangled her. Then got spooked and tried to dump the body right there.
Camion. Alors Logan se trompe-t-il? On est victime. First, ah ouais, First camion. Hein. Pas chez Streamer qu'on entendrait ça. Ah bah non, ça Mister MV, Antoine Daniel encore moins. Hein. Il a pété, mais c'est un gars du chat. Donc non, trompe pas. Quel autre détail? La mèche de cheveux de Wendy et fibre de vue, trouver les cheveux de gants. Joli travail, maître. Maître
But
Kata.
not so spooked he couldn't stop and take a lock of her hair.
Correct. He had a knife, and I believe those trophies to be extremely important to him.
Objection! Innocent until proven guilty.
Overruled. Innocent until proven guilty is a civil right, Mr. Jackson, not a basis for objection.
Oh, il est chaud, lui.
Is there any evidence to suggest that either defendant was at Hunt's Point around the time the other victims disappeared?
No. There are a lot of prostitutes there. A lot of Johns. A lot of drugs. It's hard to find witnesses.
What makes you think Patty Jackson and David Gandapur are co-conspirators in the deaths of these women?
Aside from the physical evidence, I believe Jackson worked for Gandapur.
How so?
I believe they form what's called a dominant-submissive pairing you sometimes find with serial killers who work together. As partners, they were able to fulfill each other's appetites. Jackson for sexual violence, Gandapur for murder.
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection, votre honneur. Ah non, il aurait dû théoriser.
What caused you to think of Mr. Jackson when you became involved in the hunt for the Massapequa Mangler?
When I found out a lock of Wendy Crane's hair was missing.
Oui, c'est important. Dans Human Centipede. Où arrive Gorbatchev avec du tchèque. Ça a été de récupérer des mèches de cheveux. Le nom de famille du boucher était Jackson, Petty Jackson. Joli travail, maître.
Why was that significant?
Patty had the same MO with the women he raped.
Objection! I am not a pervert.
Mr. Jackson is a convicted rapist. The locks of hair he took from those women were trophies, souvenirs, if you will.
Overruled.
We appreciate your time, Detective Logan.
Inspecteur Logan. Ah, c'était pas très... On va refirst try. Hein.
Do you solemnly swear that the
I do.
What makes you think Patty Jackson and...
I believe that...
Objection, Your Honor.
Allez, vas-y, théorise. Le gars qu'on a véritablement laissé parler, le gars d'imposition. Pas matériel de ce qu'il avance, mais... Reformuler la question. Donc Charles, quoi qu'il dise, les femmes du jury seront forcément d'accord, évidemment. Évidemment. Et je pense que c'est... Compte, c'est l'épreuve. Toujours l'épreuve.
I'll rephrase. Based on the physical evidence, how, in your professional opinion, did Mr. Gandapour and Mr. Jackson work together to commit these murders?
Judging from the physical evidence found on the victims, and in Mr. Jackson's work vehicle, and in Mr. Gandapour's garden shed, Mr. Jackson would visit a place frequented by prostitutes, where he would pick one up, get him high on crystal meth, bind them, take them to Mr. Gandapour's shed, where they were sexually assaulted, and then murdered.
Most of the Mangler's victims were found in shallow graves around Nassau County, but Wendy Crane was found in Harlem, in plain sight. Can you explain?
Patty didn't follow the plan. You see, Wendy had defensive wounds on her hands and on her arms. Something went wrong in the van. Patty panicked and he strangled her, then got spooked and tried to dump the body right there.
Ah. Camion.
But not so spooked he couldn't stop and take a lock of her hair.
Correct. He had a knife, and I believe those trophies to be extremely important to him.
Objection! Innocent until proven guilty.
Overruled. Innocent until proven guilty is a civil right, Mr. Jackson, not a basis for objection.
What caused you to think of Mr. Jackson when you became involved in the hunt for the Massapequa Mangler?
When I found out a lock of Wendy Crane's hair was missing.
Why was that significant?
Patty had the same MO with the women he raped.
Objection! I am not a pervert.
Mr. Jackson is a convicted rapist. The locks of hair he took from those women were trophies, souvenirs, if you will.
Overruled.
We appreciate your time, Detective Logan.
Voilà, c'est mieux, plus 50. Well played. Merci. First try. Mais bientôt, il y aura l'emote first try. Faut qu'il arrive, hein. Faut qu'il soit validé.
Mr. Logan.
Detective.
Un petit rappel sur la défense atteinte à la crédibilité du témoin. Quand la défense jette le doute sur le témoignage d'une personne à la barre, par exemple. Il y a une question comme sommes-nous vraiment censés avaler ça? Compétitive. Question posée plusieurs fois. Oui, dire quand le témoin à la barre ne parle pas en son nom, mais quelqu'un d'autre. Intimide.
I bet you got a nice fat promotion when I got pinched, didn't you?
That's not the way it works.
You put the blame on me because you couldn't solve your case and you thought you were going to get fired.
No.
Objection. Badgering.
Sustained. Move on, Mr. Jackson.
You're trying to ruin my life to protect a bunch of whores.
Objection, Your Honor. Badgering.
Mr. Jackson, I'm way past regretting the decision to allow you to defend yourself.
If I may, Your Honor, I would like to continue the cross-examination.
Keep it on point, Mr. Gondapur.
I am most curious, Detective Logan. How did you form your opinion on how my landscaper and I collaborated in the murders of these women?
I've been a detective for over 25 years, mostly in homicide.
Are you a psychologist?
No.
Criminal profiler? Any professional training on the psychology of serial killers?
No.
Well, your opinion can hardly be valid, can it?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Sustained. Enough, Mr. Gondapur.
What physical evidence did you find to suggest that either myself or my co-defendant are guilty of such ghastly crimes as the one suspected of the so-called Massapequa Mangler?
Burlap fibers found in Wendy Crane's hair matched that found in Patty Jackson's van and in your garden shed. Probably most telling was a cutting tool we found in the same shed with Wendy Crane's blood on it. There was also duct tape and zip ties found in the van and the shed that were an exact match for ones found on other victims.
Bon bah voilà.
Anything in my home?
Not that I'm aware.
So you found evidence in Mr. Jackson's van, evidence in my garden shed which Mr. Jackson had access to.
That's right.
None of my DNA nor hair samples, nor fingerprints found on any of the victims.
No. You were very careful in that regard.
Just one more question, Detective Logan. As a hedge fund manager, I made $25 million last year alone in salary and bonuses.
That's nice.
Do I sound like the type of person who does his own gardening?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Sustained.
I
Allez,
object
bim.
to.
What is this, some kind of Marx Brothers
comme
routine?
hier, reprenez-vous.
Get your ducks in a row, gentlemen, or I'll start holding you in contempt.
Outrage.
Sit down, you imbecile. No further questions, Your Honor.
Question rentrée.
Gentlemen, to what do we owe the pleasure?
We've come to make you an offer, Mr. Cutter. One I think you'll find quite generous given the circumstances. What if Mr. Jackson were prepared to admit to being the Massapequa Mangler?
Just Mr. Jackson?
Manslaughter 2 for my co-defendant. 10 years, eligible for parole in 5.
Lol.
And you walk away with what? A ticket for littering?
Pour des choses sauvages.
Aiding and abetting. 5 years in a minimum security prison where I am allowed to continue to manage investment funds for clients.
Is this a joke?
Am I a joke to you? Clairement, ça veut dire pas d'arrangement.
No deal, Mr. Gandapour.
No deal.
Take my advice and spend some of that money of yours on a lawyer. See you in court.
The trap. Évidemment, il essaie de négocier. Il voit qu'on a l'avantage. On a pour Jackson, faut forcément connaître de nombreuses erreurs juridiques. Parfois faire objection. Témoignage d'opinion. Des questions répétitives.
Mr. Jackson, when did you begin working on my estate in Brookville?
About 9 months ago.
Around the time the first of the Mangler's victims was found.
What? Yeah, I guess.
Earlier, Detective Logan speculated that we formed a dominant-submissive pairing, with you as the submissive. Could he be correct?
Exit style. Dites-moi les trucs. C'est que la criminologie. Objection.
Objection. Your Honor, the witness has no expert knowledge of the subject.
Sustained. Direct your questions elsewhere, Mr. Gondapur.
No way. I make my own decisions.
Mr. Jackson, the objection was sustained. If you don't know what that means, then I suggest we take a recess so your lawyer can explain it to you.
But I'm my lawyer.
Yep.
The police found physical evidence relating to the murders inside your work van, did they not?
Yeah, but that van belongs to the landscaping company.
Did anyone else have access to it?
Sometimes. Sometimes I'd leave it at the nursery. The other guys could have used it.
So many people with so much access to so much evidence. It would be very hard to say definitively who did what, wouldn't it?
Objection, Your Honor. The question has been asked and answered.
Objection overruled.
The police found some burlap sacks in my garden shed. Fibers from the burlap matched ones found in Wendy Crane's hair. Do you have any idea how those fibers got on the victim?
No idea.
What were they for, those sacks of yours?
I bought some pesticide called atrazine. I have a license to buy it.
And you really have no idea how fibers from those sacks got on poor Miss Crane?
Objection, Your Honor. The question has been asked and answered.
Sustained.
Well, what are you asking me that for?
What about the cutting tool, Patrick? The one found in the shed. It had Wendy Crane's blood on it.
I don't know. Maybe someone was doing stuff in the shed, like at night. I didn't see it, or I would have called the police.
You have to admit it is damning evidence against the two of us, really. I mean, it was my shed.
Guess so.
You guess so. How did a bloody knife get into my shed without you noticing a thing?
I don't know.
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Find a new line of questioning, Mr. Gondapur.
Là, on est bien.
The cutting tool we found in the garden shed, the one with Wendy Crane's blood on it? I suppose you don't know how that got there either.
Nope.
What about the fibers found in Wendy Crane's hair? The ones from the burlap sacks of atrazine in the shed, ones you put there.
I didn't bring anyone back there, okay? It could have been him, you know.
Oh, merde.
Blood taken from your van was found to contain Wendy Crane's DNA. How did it get there?
I don't know.
Was Wendy Crane ever in your van?
No.
Ah oui. Vas-y, le meurtre de Wendy. Tu payes.
Well, I'm confused, Mr. Jackson, because according to the statement you made to detectives, you claim to have let Wendy Crane in your van to solicit her services as a prostitute.
That's not true. They made me say that.
Did they put her blood in your van too?
I don't know how it got there, but it wasn't me.
Your co-counsel has been strangely quiet, Patty. Even you have to know he could have objected a dozen times to what I've had to say so far.
Why aren't you trying to stop her? She's badgering me, right?
Mr. Jackson, what will happen to you if you take the fall for the murders of these 8 women?
I guess Mr. Gandapur would go free.
Objection, Your Honor. Mr. Jackson doesn't know that. It's conjecture.
Sustained.
So you found your voice after all, counsel. No more questions, Your Honor.
Sans ce témoignage, le jury est indécis.
So what do you want, Mr. Jackson?
I want a deal.
Oh? What's your lawyer think?
Gandapur thinks I'm an idiot, but I know when I'm being set up.
You're a little late to that party, but I guess you got there. What are you offering?
Say I know what happened to those girls. Say I was there. Say maybe I had something to do with it, but I didn't kill them.
That might be worth something.
Accessory after the fact? That's 7 years no parole, but it's got to be concurrent with the time I got break-in parole.
Concurrent?
Yeah, sometimes you can learn useful stuff in prison.
Là, ouais, parce qu'en fait, lui, là, s'il plaide coupable, il va me donner... Il va témoigner contre son pote. Et H24, Eric Zemmour. Non, du coup, pas d'arrangement. Bah ouais, mais s'il m'aide, ouais. Pas d'arrangement, on est joueur. Hein. On est la police.
Sorry, Patty, but all the evidence does point to you as being the killer. I'll take my chances putting you in jail for life where you belong, even if it means Gandapur walks.
Ah, c'est ça. Moi, je veux pas que...
This is it. Our last chance to nail Gandapur to the wall.
Dernière chance de conseiller Gandapur. Il va craquer. Après, personnage suspect, concentrez-vous sur les faits qui constituent l'affaire, les noms et les lieux. Véritable faille dans lesquelles pourrait s'engouffrer Gandapur pour détourner l'attention du... Donc, en gros, faut éviter ces deux sujets-là. Dire qu'il est pas ch'toun, mais...
The police found quite a bit of physical evidence in your garden shed tied to the murder of Wendy Crane. Any idea how it got there?
Ask my gardener. I haven't set foot in that shed in months.
J'y vais un peu tout le temps. J'aime jardiner moi-même parfois, ça me détend. D'ailleurs, devenu bon ami, il a du talent. Ouais, j'avais zappé ce passage, mais oui, c'était sûr. Oui. Un interrogatoire non officiel qu'on a pour l'assistant des témoins. Le mandat de... Une fois le mandat de perquisition obtenu, c'est très important, sinon la preuve est irrecevable.
Did you not tell detectives that you enjoy doing your own gardening from time to time?
That's true, in general, though this past year has been quite tumultuous, as I'm sure you understand. All of my energies have been devoted to my work.
I know you're a busy man, Mr. Gandapur. But still, you never saw anything suspicious while visiting the garden shed? Duct tape? Cable ties? Blood?
No, I didn't notice.
All of which were found in Patty Jackson's van, by the way. Curious, don't you think?
What are you implying?
Patty Jackson may have done the prep work for you, but you killed those women, didn't you?
Patty Jackson is a low-life criminal whom I thought reformed and whom I tried to help. Never again.
On ne reprendra pas deux fois. Ça fait bim bam boum. Ça fait pchit et ça fait vroom.
What was it about Angelica Moore, Mr. Gandapour? Why is it you were so fixated on her that months after you were arrested picking her up, you sent Mr. Jackson here to kidnap her for you?
She was a woman in need who I tried to help and who took advantage. That is all. The arrest was a misunderstanding and the charges were dropped.
Non. C'est génial. Gamor avait reçu un pot de vin de M. Gandapour lors du procès de ce dernier. Vous voyez pourquoi? Alors, qui avait reçu le pot de vin? Avec un... Mais putain, il vient m'offrir 1000 billets contre le sien.
Misunderstanding? Are you sure? Because I have an affidavit by one Donald Deschamps, aka Bankroll, an associate of Angelica Moore's who swears under oath that Angelica changed her testimony after he received a bribe on her behalf of $1,000.
That is ridiculous. He must have me confused with someone else.
Oh yeah, another person of Arab descent in Harlem who was arrested for assaulting Angelica Moore shortly before her death.
Are you trying to get a rise out of me, Mr. Cutter?
It doesn't seem to take much, Mr. Gandapour. The prosecution rests, Your Honor.
Mr. Gandapour?
The defense rests, Your Honor.
The jury is to retire for deliberations. I'll send along jury instructions shortly. Court adjourned. Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
Please read the verdict as it stands recorded.
In regards to Mr. Jackson, as to counts 1 through 8, homicide in the first degree, guilty.
No, please, no.
Quiet. Please, proceed.
In regards to Mr. Gandapour, as to counts 1 through 8, homicide in the first degree, guilty.
Double kill.
By this time tomorrow, I'll have the best law firm in Manhattan working overtime on my appeal.
I might do some comparison shopping if I were you. Your board of directors voted to have you removed.
Voilà.
I want to hand it to you. That was not an easy trial in which to get a conviction, let alone 2. I was sure Gandapour would walk.
Gee, thanks.
Nice to see that the super rich are still held to the same standards of justice as the rest of us, once in a while.
At least until his appeal.
To the rest of us.
À nous autres. Allez, on trinque.
Is that what I think it is?
Briscoe's Little Black Book of Unsolved Cases.
How did you... Right. I don't want to know. Hold on. Frank Vincenzo Jr. I recognize that one.
Do tell.
C'est un gars du chat.
In the apartment building where that Block 17 was found.
Got a forwarding?
According to this, he's still a tenant.
Thank God for rent control.
Et voilà. Encore une enquête rondement menée. C'est Détective Kata, comme tous les mardis. Timing parfait, voilà, 1h20. Ils sont bien les épisodes, ils sont pas trop longs comme ça, on se couche pas trop tard, on peut aller travailler le lendemain. Voilà, donc là en fait, toute cette partie là ça va être mute de toute façon, donc ça sert à rien que je parle. Et je vais baisser un petit peu comme ça en attendant. Et voilà, donc en fait j'ai pas baissé, ça a coupé le son puisque ça a tout perturbé. Donc voilà, bah, j'espère que ça vous a plu, c'était bien marrant. Faites attention aux pantalons. Faites attention.
C'est à cause de ton pantalon mouille vite.
J'en peux plus. J'en peux plus. Voilà. Bonne unité, voilà. Donc on se retrouve mardi prochain pour la suite des aventures de New York Unité Spéciale. J'espère que ça vous a plu, moi ça me plaît beaucoup, c'est très rigolo comme jeu. Et d'ici là, portez-vous bien, je joue pas trop, des bisous. Envoyez des bouts de bites.